Truth does not arrive with sirens. It finds a quiet cupboard, folds itself beside the flower, and waits for you to be hungry enough to notice. My name is Evelyn Hart. I am 34. I restore photographs for a living, and I have always believed that if you clean the stains and adjust the light, a story will tell the truth of itself. In my family, I learned early that some stains are deliberate. I drove back to Greybridge on a Sunday that pretended to be kind. My grandmother Lillian had died 2 weeks before, tidy as ever, leaving a calendar full of recipes and a will with my name in it. My mother, Margaret, asked me to arrive before my younger sister. Sophie likes to enter late, glowing, as if time dilates out of respect. The house on Sycamore Lane still smelled like furniture polish and orange zest. The clock in the hall clicked with the self-importance of a small dog. I found my mother in the kitchen arranging cups as if grief needed seating charts. "Arthur Keene will read the will at 4, she said, handing me a towel instead of a hug. "Sophie says she is on the highway." "From where?" I asked. "From a direction that flatters her version," she said, which meant stop asking. I took the towel and dried plates that did not need drying. The window over the sink looked into the backyard where my grandmother once strung clotheslines like notes on a staff. Beyond the lilac bush sat the shed that had been off limits when we were children. A padlock still hung on the door. It looked theatrical and effective, like my grandmother's sermons. Upstairs, my old room had kept the afternoon light as a souvenir. On the dresser rested a wooden box that used to hold buttons and silver dollars. The lid was open. Inside lay a key on a thin ribbon and a single envelope with my name written in the careful script that taught me patience. "Evelyn, you collect evidence. I'm giving you some. Do not sign anything until you use this key. Look behind the cedar trunk in the shed. Take a flashlight and do not let anyone distract you with tea." I sat on the edge of the bed with the note in my lap and felt, absurdly, relieved. My grandmother had left me a task. Tasks are kinder than condolences. They give your hand something to do while your heart negotiates. Outside, the yard carried the smell of cut grass and a weather change that had not yet announced itself. The shed door complained when I turned the lock. Dust moved in the beam of my phone. Behind the cedar trunk a narrow panel stood proud by a fraction, as if it had been waiting to be discovered. The key did not fit the panel. It fit the small metal box behind it. Inside were photocopies of county forms, 3 Polaroids, and a folded hospital bracelet. On the bracelet, a date I knew and a name I did not. Baby girl Finch. My stomach tightened calmly, the way a rope tightens calmly when it carries a heavier weight than it should. I lifted the Polaroids. The first was a hospital crib with a pale knit blanket. The second showed a woman I did not recognize holding a newborn with the kind of fear that refuses to look like fear. The third was a photo of my mother, younger, jaw determined, eyes red but dry. On the back of the third, in my grandmother's hand, a sentence waited like a door. "You were chosen, not left." I closed my eyes and heard the house breathe. Somewhere inside, a clock insisted on seconds. I stood still long enough to let a few pass, then I folded the bracelet back into the box and slid everything into my bag. The panel went back flush. The trunk returned to its rightful scuff on the floorboards. I washed my hands at the outdoor spigot as if truth left residue. When I came in, Sophie had arrived. She filled the kitchen like a spotlight that had found a shape. She kissed my cheek as if we were always kind and poured herself lemonade as if it were her idea. "You look tired," she said, which in our dialect meant you look vulnerable. "You look expensive," I said, which meant I know you dressed for the will. Mother placed a plate of cookies on the table that no one would eat. "We will be civil," she said. "And we will honor Lillian, who did not raise us to make scenes." "Lillian loved a well-timed scene," Sophie said. She smiled. She just called them lessons. At 4, Arthur Keene arrived with a leather folder and a face that knew better than to expect applause. We gathered in the parlor where the piano held its breath. Arthur cleared his throat, read the appropriate paragraphs, then reached for a smaller envelope. "There is a letter addressed to Evelyn," he said. Sophie widened her eyes at me like a camera. Mother folded her hands the way you fold a map you are tired of unfolding. I read silently first. "Evie, if you are holding this, you have already found the box. Your mother did not make a mistake. She made a promise that hurt. She will not tell you herself. She will talk about timing and safety. You deserve the nouns. There is a birth certificate in the county office under Finch. There is also a private agreement filed with Keane and Rose. Retrieve both before you decide what to ask. Love is not a lie. It is often a disguise. I trust you to look under it. I looked up. Arthur's eyes met mine. He knew. Or he suspected enough to have practiced the neutral face. Is there anything else? I asked. There is a small trust for household upkeep, he said. And a condition. The house remains in the family for 1 year. During that year, one of you must live here and open it on Saturdays for neighbors and family. At the end of the year, the resident has the right to buy at an adjusted price. Sophie crossed her legs and presented a smile. I could host. People like me. Mother watched me, not unkindly, only firmly. Evelyn can keep the roof from leaking. She also knows which neighbors gossip and which neighbors remember. Sophie laughed softly. So it is settled. Evelyn plays innkeeper, I handle people, Mother handles what mothers handle. Not settled, I said. My voice did not rise. I will stay, but not to host your version. I will stay because the house asked me to, and because Lillian is not done teaching. I need keys to the attic and the file cabinets. Arthur cleared his throat again. There is one more document. A sealed file that Lillian asked me to release only if the resident requests it after 30 days. She believed cooling periods save families. Cooling periods save secrets, Sophie said, sugar sweet. Mother stood. Enough. We will respect your grandmother's wishes. We dispersed the way people who love each other and resent each other disperse, which is to say with chores. Sophie texted on the porch where light flatters every face. Mother took Arthur into the kitchen to sign something polite. I went upstairs to the closet at the end of the hall where Lillian kept off-season linens and letters people hoped she would forget. The top shelf held a metal tin labeled buttons in peeling tape. Inside, not a single button. Instead, a photocopy of a birth certificate matching the hospital bracelet. A receipt from a private attorney named Rose. A photo of my mother at 20, eyes bruised by decisions. On the back, the same script again. Ask Arthur for the Rose file when you have decided what you want to do with the truth. Do not let Sophie perform your pain for you. Do not let Margaret edit it into something she can sleep beside. I sat on the floor amid folded sheets and lavender sachets and let the truth do its first small work. It did not change the color of the walls. It did not undo birthdays or Christmases or the smell of pancakes on Sundays. It moved the furniture of my life an inch to the left and asked if I could still find the bathroom in the dark. Downstairs, the doorbell rang. A neighbor called Mrs. Dalton arrived with a casserole and a story about Lillian that I had heard 10 times, only this time it sounded like instructions. Keep the kitchen warm. Keep the porch light honest. Keep the door unlocked when you can afford to. That night, after the house went quiet and my mother pretended to sleep in her old room and Sophie posted a black and white photo with a caption that used the word legacy, I took the wooden box out again. I placed the hospital bracelet beside my own watch and considered which wrist told the draw time. In the morning I would drive to the county office and ask for a file with a name that used to be mine and never was. I would ask Arthur for the Rose agreement. I would ask my mother a question she did not want to hear. I would ask myself if love feels different when you rename its origin. The house creaked the way bodies creak when they remember dancing. I turned off the lamp and lay in a room that knew me better than I knew myself. Somewhere a train moved through the edge of town, carrying strangers to places my family would never admit they wanted to see. I did not cry. I made a list. Keys. Flashlight. Camera. County office hours. Keane and Rose address. A spare pen. And a blank line at the bottom for the thing I had not yet learned to name. Morning arrived like someone had turned the house down to a lower volume. I brewed coffee in the chipped blue pot my grandmother trusted more than new appliances, packed my camera and a notebook, and slid the ribbon key into my pocket. Mother appeared in the doorway with the air of someone about to edit breakfast. You are going out, she said. I'm going to the county office, I said. Then Arthur's. She nodded once. Not quite approval. Buy light bulbs. The hall upstairs is darker than it needs to be. Sophie came down in linen and sunglasses, a look that suggested airports. I will handle the florist, she announced to the room, which was her way of telling us she was not available for chores that leave dust on fingers. I left before the day learned my plans. The county building was a square of tan brick that smelled like paper and patience. A clerk with a pin that said Yanel asked how she could help, and I gave her the words my grandmother had given me. Birth certificate, last name Finch, date June 3, 1990, I said. Copy if possible. Yanel typed, frowned slightly, then typed again. A printer coughed a page into her hand. She slid it across the counter like a secret, trying not to make a sound. On the certificate, under child, it read Evelyn Finch. Under mother, it read Margaret Finch. Under father, a blank line. The address matched Sycamore Lane. The registrar's signature was neat and dry. My mouth did not fall open. It arranged itself around the ordinary. Margaret had not lied when she called herself my mother. She had omitted the verbs. Do you need anything else? Yanel asked, kind without leaning in. A certified copy, I said. My voice sounded like it was handling glass. She stamped the page and placed it in a yellow folder. Good luck, she said, the kind of luck that means courage. Outside, the sky had chosen a steady grey, the kind that keeps secrets for you. I drove to Keene and Rose where the carpet was too new for the furniture. Arthur met me with the efficient solemnity of a man who balances grief and billing. You want the Rose file, he said. He had already taken it from a cabinet. He led me to a small conference room and closed the door. The file held a private agreement dated 2 weeks after my birth. Margaret Hart consulted Rose regarding a maternal relinquishment that became unnecessary when the father declined responsibility. A second page outlined a guardianship contingency that named Lillian as temporary guardian if Margaret became unable to care for the child. The third page was a letter from my grandmother to my mother. It did not plead. It set terms for help. Debt payments. Childcare. Space at Sycamore Lane without rent for 1 year. At the bottom, a sentence that did not belong to law. When you are ready to tell her, I will be in the kitchen. My hands were steady. My eyes read the lines and held them. Arthur watched without commentary. Was there ever a petition to change my name? I asked. It was not necessary, he said. You were registered Hart after your mother married your stepfather. The Finch record remains because Lillian wanted a copy that could not be edited by marriage. I turned the letter over as if an answer might be stuck to the back. The father, I said. Anything. Not here, Arthur said, and because he was not a liar he added, Lillian kept notes. If she wanted you to know, she put them where you would look. I signed for the copies. At the door he said, Lillian trusted your judgment. That is rarer than love. Back at Sycamore Lane, the house had collected people. Neighbors left flowers on the hall table while Sophie curated vases and outfits. Mother stood on the porch speaking quietly to Mrs. Dalton, the casserole diplomat of the block. When she saw the folder in my hand, she excused herself and stepped inside. Well, she said. The well was not an invitation. It was a fence. Birth certificate, I said. And the Rose agreement. Her face did not collapse. It adjusted, like a sail that finds a new wind. Did you expect a different name? I expected a story that matched the paperwork, I said. I gave you a childhood that matched a childhood, she said. I did not hand you adult wreckage when you were 8. I have never been ashamed of you. I have been ashamed of timing. Who is my father? I asked. She looked toward the window without looking out. A man who liked exits. He left before you could remember his face. Name. Does the name change the roof you learned to fix? She asked. It changes the map, I said. I want the full street. She pressed her lips together, then named a man I had heard in town gossip without attaching him to my life. Not a stranger. Not a saint. A local story who left before the third act. He never tried to find you, she said. He did not want to be found. Did you try to make him? I asked. I tried to make him decent, she said. He preferred the ocean. We stood in the hallway where the wallpaper recorded hands that touched it while thinking hard thoughts. Sophie sailed in with a vase and stopped when she saw our faces. Her eyes went to the folder, then to my hands. "So," she said, "you found the trunk." "Not a trunk," I said. "A box." "Boxes hold jewelry and apologies," she said. "Trunks hold bodies." Mother cut the air with her palm. "Enough." Sophie leaned against the doorframe, amused. "Are we going to pretend this is a surprise? Half this town speaks in italics. Lillian managed secrets the way other people managed gardens." "I'm not surprised," I said. "I'm done with italics." Sophie's expression twitched, then settled. "What do you plan to do?" "Live in the house for a year," I said. "Open the door on Saturdays. Get the attic keys. Ask for the sealed file after 30 days. Fix what breaks." "And the father?" she asked, too casual. "Not your concern," I said. "Everything is my concern when it becomes content," she said. She smiled like a camera. "Kidding. Mostly." I went upstairs for air that had not been through anyone else's chest. In my room, the wooden box waited where I had left it, patient as hardwood. I placed the certified copy beside the hospital bracelet and took a photo of them together. Proof and object. Then I opened the closet and pulled down the tin again. Beneath the photocopies lay something I had missed in my first search. A folded index card with a key taped to it and a single line in Lillian's tidy hand. "If Margaret will not tell you, the bank box will." The key was small and square-edged, the kind that opens drawers inside vaults that look like bad dreams. The card listed First Royal, Box 118. I put the key in my pocket and was halfway down the stairs when the doorbell rang. Arthur again, or another neighbor with food that tastes like obligation, I thought. It was neither. A woman stood on the porch with a face I almost recognized, as if someone had adjusted the contrast on a photo of my mother. She was around 50, plain ring on her left hand, hair gathered without flourish. She held her purse like a person who keeps receipts. "Evelyn," she said. She did not ask if she had the right house. "My name is Clare Finch." My grip on the banister tightened. The name moved through the hallway and left the doors open behind it. Mother appeared behind me, voice soft and held together. "Clare," she said. "We asked you not to come today." "I know," Clare said. "I came to pay my respects to Lillian. And to give Evelyn something that is mine to give." Sophie materialized in the doorway with quiet, hungry eyes. "Should I make tea?" she asked, which meant she wanted to sit inside the first row of whatever this was. "Tea later," I said. I stepped aside and let Clare in. The parlor folded around us like a stage finally ready. She sat on the edge of the sofa as if the cushions might judge her posture. "I am not here to make claims," she said. "I signed those away when I was 20. I am here to tell you my part of the nouns, and to hand you a letter I wrote on a day I did not mail it." She opened her purse and took out an envelope that had been handled many times. The paper had the tired sheen of something that has been kept and reconsidered. My name was on the front in handwriting that had practiced itself out of shame. Mother stood behind the sofa, hands folded, eyes on the piano. Sophie sat without being asked, leaning forward with an interest that was almost kind. I did not open the letter yet. I placed it on the table where everyone could see it existed but could not see inside. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Clare shook her head. "Nothing. I have a son and a life and a piece I had to build a piece at a time. I only want you to know I was young and poor and frightened, and Lillian saved both of us from a version we could not survive. I came today because grief resets calendars, and because I saw your car and I thought, if she is here, perhaps we are both grown enough to look at this without looking away." Her voice was not theatrical. It was workmanlike, like laying tile, one line at a time so that the pattern would hold. "Why now?" I asked. "Because your grandmother is not here to block the door," she said. She did not say it with anger. She said it with gratitude and a sliver of relief. She did what I asked her to do. She protected you. She also protected Margaret. She did not need to protect me anymore. Mother closed her eyes. "Clare, please." Clare stood. I will not stay. The letter explains what I can explain. There is a bank box that contains what I could not keep safe in my apartment. Lillian has the key. Perhaps she gave it to you. If she did not, Arthur can get you in with proof. She glanced at my pocket as if keys make a visible weight. I walked her to the door. On the porch she touched my sleeve, not a claim, only a human touch. I named you in my head every year, she said. Sometimes Evelyn, sometimes Evie, sometimes a name I did not have the right to speak. You do not owe me forgiveness or interest. You owe yourself the decency of a complete story. She left without looking back. I carried the letter to my room, closed the door, and sat at the desk where I learned to sign my name the way Lillian taught me. I broke the seal carefully. Dear Evelyn, I do not know if I will ever meet you. If I do, I want to look you in the face. If I do not, I want you to have this paragraph. Your father was not a villain. He was a man who loved a life that did not include responsibility. He told me he could be a friend to a child but not a father. I believed him because I was young and because his certainty sounded like truth. I was wrong. Responsibility can be learned. Certainty is often a costume. Lillian was the responsible one. Margaret was the brave one. I was the honest one, too late. The last line was inked twice. There is a second bracelet in the bank box. It belongs to someone you love already. I looked up from the page and felt the room tilt a few degrees. Someone I love already. The sentence moved like a small animal in the corner of the mind. Mother. Sophie. Or someone the house had taught me to love without naming. Downstairs, the front door opened and closed. Footsteps moved toward the kitchen and stopped. Sophie's voice lifted, practiced casual. Who was that? A neighbor, I heard Mother say. Bring more plates. The house held its breath again. I folded the letter and put it beside the key. The bank box number sat on the index card like an appointment I could not miss. I turned off the lamp, then turned it on again. The light looked different because I knew what it was falling on. I made another list in my notebook. First Royal, Box 118. Second Bracelet. Ask Arthur for access letter. Leave Sophie out. Keep Mother in. Call Yanel if records do not match. Prepare to choose what to tell and what to hold. Pack gloves. This story would leave a residue. The bank lobby smelled like cold marble and old pens. First Royal had the kind of vault that wanted you to believe in seriousness. I showed the clerk my ID, the death certificate copy Arthur had prepared, and the small square key taped to Lillian's card. He led me past a row of quiet doors to a room with a desk and a lamp that pretended to be kind. Box 118 slid out like a drawer with secrets. Inside were 3 items wrapped in tissue. I unwrapped the smallest first. A hospital bracelet. The plastic had yellowed in that particular way time chooses. The tag read Infant Heart. The date was 2 years after mine. The mother line was blank. On the back, in Lillian's neat script, a name had been added in pencil as if to help a future memory. Sophie. The second bundle held a thin stack of papers bound with a clip. At the top, a private placement adoption affidavit. The biological mother was listed as C. Finch. The consent date matched the bracelet. The adoptive parent was listed as Margaret Hart. There was a space for the father with the phrase not acknowledged. A notarized letter followed, written in Margaret's careful schoolteacher hand, promising a home and a sister and a life that did not require a courtroom to bless it. The third bundle was a photograph. Margaret sat on the Sycamore Lane porch holding a newborn in a cotton blanket. Lillian stood behind her, one hand on her daughter's shoulder with a steadiness that looked like policy. On the back someone had written 2 names and 1 instruction. Evelyn, tell her when you can. Do not let this be a performance. Make it a kitchen table. I did not cry. I counted. Dates, signatures, handwriting, the order of things. Then I placed the bracelet back in its tissue and the papers back in the box. I kept the photograph in my pocket because pictures feel like witnesses that refuse to leave. Outside, the sky had decided on rain without asking permission. I drove home through a steady curtain and felt the town pull its shoulders up like a person at a bus stop. At the house, The hallway was crowded with flowers that tried very hard to smell like comfort. Sophie stood at the mirror arranging herself as if sympathy had lighting cues. "You were gone a while," she said without looking at me. "Bank," I said. "What could possibly be interesting at a bank?" she asked, then smiled at herself as if she had made a joke. Mother glanced up from the dining table where she was sorting condolence cards into useful and polite. Her eyes found my pocket as if keys make a sound only mothers hear. "Kitchen," I said. Sophie followed. Of course she did. Curiosity was her faith. I set the photograph on the table face down. Mother did not touch it. She placed her hand on the chair back and waited for an instruction that would cost less than the truth. The box held 3 things, I said. A bracelet with Sophie's date. An affidavit with Claire's name. A photograph of you both. Sophie laughed once, a small bright sound with no humor in it. Claire as in the woman from the porch. As in Finch, I said. She picked up the photograph and turned it over. The porch looked exactly as it does now, except for the angle in Margaret's jaw that had softened over years of doing hard things. Sophie studied the image, then the handwriting, then the sleeve of the blanket like it might reveal a trick. "So what?" she said finally. "Private adoption is legal. Lillian did the paperwork. Margaret did the raising." Mother's mouth tightened at the word Margaret as if the syllables belonged to a different room. "I did the loving," she said. Sophie put the photo down with care that mocked itself. "Why tell me now?" "Because the box asked me to," I said. "Because Claire brought a letter. Because the story is happening whether we speak it or let the town make a worse version." Sophie opened her hands. "And what am I supposed to do with it? Bake a cake that says welcome to your own life." "Sit," I said. "Breathe. Ask what you want to know." I looked at Mother. "And we answer." Mother sat, slowly, like a person lowering herself into a cold lake. "I did not hide you because I was ashamed. I hid the nouns because I did not trust this town to use them gently." Sophie traced the edge of the photograph. "Am I Claire's daughter?" she asked, voice flat. "Yes," Mother said. "You are mine in every way that counts and hers in every way that began." Sophie did not look at me. "And you," she asked, "are you her daughter too?" "Yes," I said. "Different years. Same kitchen." Something passed across Sophie's face that I could not categorize. Relief trying to wear anger, or anger trying to look like relief. "So we are real sisters," she said. She laughed again, softer. "That will ruin at least 3 people's day." Mother closed her eyes as if the line had cut air. "This is not a game." "It is not," I said, before Sophie could swing. "It is a structure. We can live in it or pretend the roof is not where it is." Sophie stood and walked to the sink, turned the tap on, then off, as if water had something to say. "What else is in the box?" "A bracelet," I said. "Yours. And a letter from Claire for me. She said there is something she could not keep in her apartment. It is in the box we already opened." Sophie's shoulders lifted and fell. "I do not want to meet her," she said, not quite convincing. "You do not have to," Mother said, too quickly. "I did not ask for permission," Sophie replied. "I said I do not want to. Today." The doorbell rang. The house had developed timing. I half expected Claire to materialize again, but it was Arthur, holding a folder with the patience of a man who understands that mail can change a person's week. "There is something I forgot to mention," he said. Lillian added an addendum. "The sealed file you can request after 30 days has a second condition. If both of you request it, I am authorized to release it early." "Both," Sophie said. "Both who?" "Both grandchildren who choose to reside here for the year," he said. Sophie looked at me like a mirror checking its own honesty. "I am not moving into this museum," she said. I looked at the bracelet in my pocket and the photograph on the table and the way the house had learned how to breathe our names. "I am," I said. "That satisfies Lillian." Arthur inclined his head. She would have liked that sentence. After he left, Mother began a stew as if boiling something could make it kinder. Sophie disappeared to the porch to send a text that would generate sympathy from people who think they understand legacy because they own antique frames. I took the bracelet upstairs and placed it next to mine in the wooden box. 2 circles of plastic like coordinates on a map. Rain shifted to a finer stitch. The light thinned to late afternoon. I called Yanelle at the county office and asked a question I did not know how to phrase. She understood anyway. There is no father listed on either record, she said gently. It happens more than people say. What about an addendum? I asked. Sometimes people come back with a name. Not on file, she said. But there is a note on the Hart record that a private attorney requested a certified copy on the date of adoption. Rose. That matched the file. Paper talk agreeing with paper talk. I thanked her and sat very still until the chair stopped feeling like a test. Downstairs, Sophie came back in, cheeks bright from weather and attention. She stood at the foot of the stairs with a posture that belonged to a different kind of stage. I want to see Claire, she said. Mother's spoon froze in the air. Not today. Tomorrow, Sophie said. And you are both coming. Kitchen table. Not a performance. I looked at Mother. She looked at the pot and stirred once, as if that could mix a better outcome. Tomorrow, she said. We ate in the dining room without discussing ingredients. After, I washed dishes while Mother dried. Sophie scrolled through condolences as if comfort had a leaderboard. When the plates were stacked and the lights were off and the house returned to its night volume, I carried the photograph to my room and taped it inside the closet door where no one would see it by accident. I lay down and listened to the rain edit the evening. Somewhere in the dark, the old clock resumed its argument with time. I thought of Claire's letter and her line about certainty as a costume. I thought of Lillian's instruction about kitchen tables. I thought of the second bracelet and the second chance it represented. Morning would ask us to sit together and name things without italics. If we failed, the town would do it for us. If we succeeded, we could live here without feeling like thieves in our own story. In the blue hour before sleep, my phone buzzed with a number I did not recognize. The message was brief. We should talk before you see Claire. I knew Lillian. I knew your father. The name that followed was one I had seen in old photographs of a 4th of July picnic. Peter Rowan. I stared at the glow until it emptied. Then I typed a single word. When? Morning arrived the way careful people enter a room. It did not shake anything. I went downstairs to find Mother already dressed, Sophie padding in with her phone like a small mirror, and the house holding its breath. I have an errand, I said. Mother poured coffee and did not look at me. Arthur again. No. Someone who knew Lillian. And my father. Her hands went still on the pot. Who? Peter Rowan. The name moved across the table and settled in front of her. She placed the pot down as if the counter might bruise. He is not a kind man, Evelyn. He is a collector of other people's moments. Sophie leaned her chin on her hand. That sounds like 3 people I dated. He sent a message, I said. He wants to talk before we see Claire today. Mother met my eyes. Steady now. If you go, you do not go alone. I was not planning to, I said, then looked at Sophie. She toyed with her phone, then nodded. Fine. I like to see the shape of a story before other people retell it. We met Peter at the diner on Main that smells like butter and 10,000 secrets. He was in the corner booth with a newspaper he was not reading and a hat that wanted to be history. He stood when we approached, polite to the point of parody. Evelyn. Margaret. Sophie. He said our names like titles. I'm sorry for your loss. Lillian taught this town how to mind its own business. We did not listen. Your message, I said. He folded the paper and set it aside. Your father was David Rowan. My younger brother. The room sharpened around the edges. Sophie went very still. Mother closed her eyes for a moment and opened them set at a different angle. He left before you were born, Peter said. He loved boats and horizons and not being told where to stand. He was not cruel. He was allergic to permanence. Lillian did not want his name in your records. She said it would be a gift to spare you from his kind of gravity. Mother's voice was low but not weak. Your brother did not want to be named, she said. He wanted to be a man whose stories never had to include anyone else. Peter watched her without flinching. You are not wrong. Why talk now? I asked. Because Lillian is gone, and the town will decide the truth if you do not, he said. Also because your father is not only a silhouette. He wrote letters. He sent money for a while. He came back once, in the fall you were 6. He stood at the end of this street and looked at the house like a sailor looks at a harbor in a storm. Then he left again. I kept what he sent. He said if there was a day when truth would not break you, give her this. He slid an old envelope across the table. The paper was salt-creased, as if it had been in a pocket that also held maps. My name was on the front in a hand I did not know. There was no address. Just Evelyn. I did not open it. Not yet. I was learning that letters require air around them. What about Sophie? I asked. Peter's eyes softened. She is not his. Claire brought her to Lillian, and your mother made a life that matched the promise. Sophie stared at the sugar packets like they were trying to spell something. Do you have letters for me? No, Peter said. Only the stories Lillian allowed. You are not a question mark. You are an answer. Sophie exhaled and laughed once, small and sharp. That line will make a great caption. I placed the envelope in my bag next to Claire's letter. 2 small weights. I looked at Peter. What did Lillian mean to you? He smiled without teeth. She scared me into decency twice. That is more than most people manage. We left the diner with the kind of silence that carries extra freight. On the sidewalk, Sophie touched my sleeve. I am not ready for him as a noun, she said. Keep him as a verb for now. Agreed, I said. Back at Sycamore Lane we had 2 hours until Claire was due. I went up to the attic to move boxes so the air could find new paths. The house liked to breathe when people were honest in it. Dust lifted and settled like a polite audience. In the far corner I found a crate labeled Winter. The space split the word in half as if it had been cut by a dull knife. Inside were coats and quilts and a small tin with the word spare written on the lid. Lillian had a tidy sense of humor. Inside the tin lay a ring, plain gold, large enough for a man's hand. Taped inside the lid was a note. David returned it. He said he was not the right finger. Keep it for Evelyn in case she wants a true thing that did not lie to her. I held the ring in my palm and felt the weight that simple metal can carry. Then I put it back. I wanted my truths in sentences before I wore any of them. Downstairs, Mother had set the table as if for a visit from an inspector. Sophie had placed fresh flowers without being asked. She looked at me and then at the bag on my shoulder. More surprises, she said. Only the kind that wears a circle, I said. The doorbell rang on time. Claire arrived with rain on her coat and steadiness in her posture. She stepped inside and paused at the threshold like a person remembering an old rule. Mother gestured to the kitchen table. We agreed, she said. Claire Saturday. She did not bring drama with her. She brought a folder and a small box that looked like it once held jewelry and now held something larger. Before we begin, she said, I need to correct a verb. I did not give you up. I gave you over. To Lillian. To Margaret. To a house that held. It matters to my sleep that I use the right verb. Sophie nodded, arms folded. Noted. Claire opened the folder. This is the copy of the paperwork from my side. It matches what you found. Here are doctor bills I paid and could not pay. Here is a letter I wrote to Margaret and never sent, asking if you crawled early and whether you liked pears. Here is the photograph Lillian mailed me on your first birthday. She placed each item on the table like an offering that did not assume acceptance. Then she opened the small box. Inside lay a bracelet identical to the one in the bank, except for one difference. This one had a thin charm attached, shaped like a tiny star. I kept it when I should have put it with the rest, she said. I told myself it was selfishness. It was also survival. I took a piece so I could believe the whole existed without me. Mother's hands were clenched on her knees under the table. Sophie's voice was careful. You said there was something Lillian blocked. Claire met my eyes. You will hate this first. Then it will help. I am not only your biological mother. I am your father's sister. The sentence landed like a beam set wrong that still somehow holds. Mother's breath left her like a step down a dark stair. Sophie's face lifted and then changed, not to pity, not to anything I had seen before. Recognition at a strange angle. I spoke because silence might break us. Say it all the way, I said. David and I were raised by a mother who loved him more, Claire said. He learned to be adored and to leave when adoration asked for rent. I learned to manage consequences. When he ran and you existed, Lillian found me before the town did. She asked me to come to her kitchen. She did not shout. She said words like weather and furniture. She said we could either set the room now or let it tilt and pretend not to know why we felt seasick. I felt Lillian in that sentence so clearly that the room steadied. I signed what Rose put in front of me, Claire said. I kept one bracelet and one letter I never mailed. I let Lillian be the grandmother and the general. I let Margaret be the mother. I moved 3 towns over and married a man who irons his shirts and keeps promises. I have a son who thinks I am brave. I did not want him to learn I had once been a person who let hard things happen in kitchens. Mother swallowed and found her voice. We did what we could with the furniture we had. Claire nodded. And none of it changes the fact that both of you have the right to the nouns. Sophie leaned forward. Do you want a relationship with us? Please answer without adjectives. Claire did not smile. I want to be available without being a vacuum. I will take the shape you need if that shape does not erase Margaret. I have no interest in rehearsing the past. I would like to attend your future if invited. I looked at Mother. She looked back, tired and present. I do not want to be replaced, she said. You cannot be, I said, and believed it enough to say it out loud. We ate bread and fruit like a ritual. No one pretended it was enough. Then Claire stood. There is one more thing, she said. You will get a call from the Rowan estate manager. David is dead. He died 3 years ago in a country that loved him for the same reasons this one could not. He left a small box of things he claimed were yours, along with a letter that uses the word almost too many times. I did not deliver it because I did not trust him to leave you with more than ache. I trust you more than I trust him. She handed me a business card with a number and a name. Rowan Maritime Trust. After she left, the house did not breathe for a long minute. Then it did, slower, like a person who has been crying and has stopped. Mother rinsed glasses at the sink. Sophie dried them with a towel and did not roll her eyes at the chore. I stood with the business card in my hand and the bracelet with the star in my pocket. Do you want to call tonight? Sophie asked. No, I said. I want one evening where the nouns sit on the table and no one rearranges them. Mother turned from the sink. Evelyn, she said. The ring in the attic. Did you find it? Yes, I said. Keep it, she said. Not because it belonged to a man who could not stay. Keep it because Lillian decided it should anchor you if the story tried to drag you. We sat at the table as the light went from late to almost. Sophie's phone buzzed and she did not reach for it. I opened Peter's envelope. Inside was a single page and a photograph. The photo showed the back of a man on a pier, shoulders loose, horizon the only face. The letter said little and too much. Evie. I am not the right man. I tried to learn. I almost learned. If you ever want a boat, there is a locker at Greybridge Marina with your initials. The key is with your grandmother. If she gave it to you, it means you are strong enough to look inside. If she did not, you owe me nothing. I folded the letter and put it away. I did not owe him anything. I owed the kitchen table the rest of the work. Night came on like a decision. Tomorrow we would go to the marina and to the trust office. We would ask for records without italicizing. We would bring the bracelets, both of them, because sometimes proof needs a pair to make sense. Before bed I went to the attic and held the ring again. It was warm from the day. I did not put it on. I placed it in the wooden box with the bracelets and the photograph and the letters. The box had begun to sound like a heart. I set it in the closet and closed the door. In the quiet, the house made the small sounds of old wood settling. The clock insisted on its argument. I slept with the certainty that part of this story would hurt more before it hurt less. The hurt would be useful if we let it. In the morning I would bring the marina key to the water and decide if almost deserved a funeral. Morning took the house in both hands and steadied it. I made coffee, packed the bracelets, the photograph, Peter's letter, and the small ring in the wooden box, then slipped Lillian's ribbon key into my pocket. Mother watched from the doorway like a person deciding whether to accompany a diver to the edge. Sophie appeared in sneakers and a jacket not designed for boats. "Marina first," I said. "Then the trust," she replied. Mother hesitated, then took her coat. If Lillian left water in this story, she expected a witness. Greybridge Marina smelled like rope and old salt even though the river was more mood than ocean. The locker number was etched in flaking paint. I turned the key. Inside sat a weathered duffel and a metal tin the size of a lunchbox. The duffel held a windbreaker and a logbook with entries that were more compass than life. The tin clicked open to photographs and a smaller envelope taped to the lid. The photographs were not of me. They were of boats and horizons and shorelines that could have been anywhere. In two of them a woman stood near a railing with her hair hiding her face. Almost is a word that prefers the backs of people. The envelope was addressed to Evelyn, in the same hand as the letter Peter gave me. I opened it. Inside lay a single silver pendant shaped like a small anchor and a note 3 sentences long. "For the times you feel pulled. For the times you choose to hold. I will not pretend I taught you either." Sophie took the pendant and rolled the chain between her fingers. "He knew a metaphor when he saw one," she said. "Keep it," I said. She looked surprised. "You sure?" "He did not earn the space on my neck," I said. "He can earn a drawer in yours." We returned the locker contents the way we found them and closed the door on the smell of other people's departures. On the walk back to the car, Sophie fell into step beside me. "Do you want him to be redeemable?" she asked. "No," I said. "I want him to be finished." At Rowan Maritime Trust, the receptionist had the expression of a person who has signed for too many shipments of regret. A man named Harrigan met us in a conference room with tasteful art and a view of the river that made the town look intentional. "Ms. Hart," he said. "Your aunt informed us you might call. I'm sorry for your loss. Lillian was a force." "She still is," I said. He placed a small wooden box on the table and a document folder beside it. "Your father left this with instructions. He also left arrears that we resolved from assets he did not manage to drown. There is a letter of intent that is not legally binding and a list of maritime fines that is." Mother gave a small, involuntary laugh at that. Harrigan slid the letter across to me. It was longer than Peter's note and shorter than any apology. "Evelyn. I tried to be a harbor and kept being a weather pattern. If you ever wanted to find me, you would have. If you never wanted to, that is the part one deserve. There is a small account that should have been yours if I had been a person who planned. It is now. I left no debts in your name. The ring I returned to Lillian was not a failure. It was an admission that some circles belong somewhere else. If you choose to forgive me, do it because you are kind to yourself. If you choose not to, you are correct." The box held a compass, old and polished, with a hairline crack across its face. When I tipped it, the needle shivered and then found north as if stubbornness were a virtue. Under the felt lay a sealed envelope with Lillian's name on it. I broke the seal only because she had taught me when to disobey polite rules. "Margaret," it began, as if she expected it to land in my mother's hands. "If you are reading this, David did not get better. He will always be a boy in a storm. Evelyn is not a storm. She is a roof. You built her. I only pointed at wood and handed you nails. Do not let grief make you stingy with nouns." Mother took the letter and read it twice. The second time her mouth softened around my name. The folder held logistics that would never make a good story. A small account that could replace a roof. A list of fines that were no longer ours. A notarized permission for the release of his ashes to Peter, already executed. The estate was tidy because someone else had tidied it. Sophie closed the folder and looked at me with a face stripped of performance. "What do you want to do with any of this?" "Use what helps," I said. "Put the rest in a room without chairs." We left the trust office with the compass and the account information and a sense that North exists even when nobody deserves it. On the sidewalk, Mother linked her arm through mine in a gesture she had only used when I was 6 and feverish. "He is finished," she said. "He is," I agreed. Back at Sycamore Lane, the house felt occupied by a new quiet. Claire arrived in the afternoon with her son, a boy who looked like someone who has been told the truth more often than not. They stood at the kitchen threshold until I waved them in. Sophie surprised herself by getting 2 extra plates without commentary. We sat at the table Lillian had called the only courtroom worth attending. I placed both bracelets in the center, the photograph, the compass, and the ring. Margaret placed Lillian's letter. Claire placed the star charm and a picture of me on a tricycle that I had never seen. "We cannot live in proof," I said. "But we can visit it when our memories get tired." Claire nodded. "And we can agree that almost is a word we will use only for baking." Sophie snorted and then smiled in spite of herself. "Fine. Almost will only refer to pies." Mother leaned forward. "I have an ask," she said. "It is unfair and I am asking anyway. Let me be the one to tell the neighbors. Not with a speech. With the sentences that keep the porch light honest." "Yes," I said. Sophie looked at Claire. "I do not know what I want with you yet," she said, simple and true. "But I want the option to want." "That is all I would ask," Claire said. "Options are kinder than promises." We ate stew that tasted better than the sum of its ingredients. The boy asked if the attic was haunted and I said only by quilts and excellent manners. After dishes, after a short walk down the block in the early dark, after Claire thanked the doorway and promised to call, we returned to the table and counted the chores of the week. Saturday gatherings. Light bulbs in the hall. A list of neighbors who needed chairs with arms. A call to Yanel about a correction on a form that would not change anything except the feeling of looking at it. When the house settled, I climbed to the attic and took the ring from the tin. I slid it on a chain with the compass and hung both from the nail inside my closet where the photograph lived. I did not need to wear them to know they were mine to handle. In my room I opened a fresh page in my notebook and wrote the first lines of the plan Lillian would have approved of. "Open the house on Saturdays. Keep a sign that says tea and truth. 1 per person. Refills allowed. Post a notice that children may ask any question and adults may answer only once. Put a jar by the door for almost, to be used only for pies." I slept, and the house slept with me in the way old houses do when they have been convinced that people will not fight them anymore. In the morning the porch smelled like rain and soap. I fixed the upstairs bulb. Sophie made a flyer that did not use the word legacy. Mother called Mrs. Dalton and asked for the folding chairs. Claire texted that she had found 1 more photograph, no rush. At 10, the first neighbor arrived, then 2, then a handful, drawn by curiosity and the smell of cinnamon. I set the bracelets in a shadow box on the mantel with a small card that said history, not display. The compass sat on the piano where the light could find its crack and not apologize for it. The ring stayed upstairs, private and sufficient. People told Lillian stories that I wrote down because memory gets greedy. Children ran in the backyard like the past owed them nothing. Someone tuned the piano quietly and then played a song that made 3 people cry and nobody leave. Near noon Peter stood at the gate and did not cross it. I met him halfway on the walk. He touched the brim of his hat, a gesture from a century where men had fewer options for saying I am sorry. "You were right," he said. "Finishing is a kindness." "Thank you for starting a part one could finish," I said. He nodded and left before the house could make him say more. By late afternoon the kitchen had the look of a room that had earned its mess. Chairs askew. Breadcrumbs making small maps. The jar labeled almost held 2 crumpled notes with pie requests. That felt correct. Sophie leaned against the counter. "Do you think we can do this for a year?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I think we can do it for as long as the house needs to learn our names again." She touched the star charm at her neck. "I'm keeping this for a while." "Good," I said. "Wear it like punctuation. It suits you." Mother flicked off the porch light and then on again, testing the bulb the way people test new habits. "Tomorrow we tell the town," she said. "We already did," I said, and looked at the room we had filled with nouns that did not need italics. That night, before sleep, I opened the wooden box and added 1 more item. A card that read rules of the house. Proof before rumor. Tea before judgment. Kitchen table over stage. Almost for pies only. Forgiveness optional. Decency required. I slid the card under the bracelets and closed the lid. The box made the soft sound of wood agreeing. Grief had found the door and stopped waiting. Truth had taken a chair. Love had rearranged the furniture. The house did not feel like a museum anymore. It felt like a place you could enter with your hands full and leave with them a little lighter.